everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a 50 days of Stardew Valley challenge. Please keep in mind before we get started that there was only so much that could be included. If I showed every second, the video would be far too long. Be sure to subscribe if you have not already, and without further ado, let's get started. On day 1, I began clearing the primary debris on my farm to make room for the future crops I would be planting. I visited Pierre's to buy seeds because we do not stand JojaMart in this household. Embarrassing, but I didn't realize how full my pockets were already. So full that I had to leave and come back, but I made a chest with some of the other wood to prevent this from happening again. After planting the crops, I went around the valley and greeted some of the villagers that I came across. On day 2, I checked all of the TV channels before doing anything else. This became a routine most days. I checked the mail, watered my crops, and began whittling away at more of the debris that still covered my farm. I got my first geode doing this, visited Willie so I could get a fishing rod, and did a bit of foraging. I hadn't really been fishing yet, so I did it near Linus's tent in hopes of catching something to sell or donate worthy. I got home and realized I was being silly goofy and forgot to plant my parsnips, so I planted them and then went to bed. On day 3, I checked the TV. It was raining, so instead of taking care of crops, I did a bit of foraging and fishing. My main goal was to just gather anything and everything that I could for the community center before it was even available. I had a hard time walking around trying to get back to the house, so I cleared a small part to make sure I could efficiently move in that area. I harvested the onions I found, and to be honest, I never actually figured out whose they are and why they're there in the first place. On day 4, I checked the TV, watered my crops, fished, and once again worked on clearing more farm debris. I decided to visit Gunther so I could begin donating items and gave him a rusty spur while I was there. On day 5, I watered my crops, visited the mines for the first time, and began mining. My goal was to get to around level 50 area throughout the duration of this challenge. I don't know about you guys, but the standard mines feel genuinely kinda hard sometimes around that level if you're playing solo. I visited the museum to donate a topaz I found while mining. I had low energy levels, so I went to the beach afterward to see what could be worked on. Returned to the museum to donate an artifact that I found in the sand. I went ahead and planted the cauliflower I earned at the museum before going to bed. On day 6, I checked the TV, had a morning chat with Clint, checked my mail, and tended to my crops. I made a couple of museum donations, chatted with villagers, and went to the forest to gather crafting resources. Harvesting resources was a very tedious process and needed to be done over time so I didn't totally lose my mind. On day 7, I checked the TV, read my mail, and harvested my turnips. The community center was not yet open, so I continued attempting to grow extra parsnips to get gold star ones, fished, and went mining to gather everything I could to donate. On day 8, I checked the TV, tended to my crops, harvested resources, and at long last I unlocked the community center. I happened to already have sufficient wood to fix the beach bridge, so I donated what I had in order to fix it. On day 9, I checked the TV, tended to my crops, and visited the wizard to translate the Junimo scroll for me. I completed the spring foraging bundle and made a few other donations to the spring crops and fish tank bundles. On day 10, I checked the TV, went fishing with not a whole lot of luck, and went mining. I got my first mine reward of the challenge, a steel small sword to replace the crusty beat-up starter sword. On day 11, I checked the TV and mailbox, watered and harvested my crops, and made a few community center donations. I had found a couple more geodes and decided to visit Clint so he could open them for me. I visited the Adventurers Guild before returning to my farm to gather crafting resources and clear debris. On day 12, Marnie stopped by to tell me a lost cat needed a home. Naturally, I knew I needed to name her Luna because she looked like a pixelated version of my actual cat. I tended to my crops as usual, took my geodes to Clint to be opened up, and purchased my first backpack upgrade. I decided to visit the beach so I could see what I could forage and donate a few of my findings to the museum. On day 13, sadly the footage from day 13 was not salvageable when my files were originally corrupted, but I did win the egg hunt and I found around 8 eggs. On day 14, I checked the TV, watered my crops, completed the spring crops bundle, and went mining. I took the geodes I found to Clint to crack them open and donated what I could to the museum. I found Robin's axe after completely forgetting she even asked me to find it. Thankfully, it's always in the exact same spot at least. On day 15, I checked the TV, watered my crops, and discovered it was officially salmonberry season. I absolutely love when there's seasons with random fruit growing on bushes as it makes for easy extra money and is a health booster in the mines. I returned Robin's axe to her and went around the valley talking to the villagers. On day 16, a lot of my crops were ready, so I harvested them and watered all of the others that weren't ready yet. I talked to Maru and visited Piers only to see him getting bullied by Morris trying to steal his business. I bought more parsnip seeds, planted and watered them, and returned to the mines once more. On day 17, I watered my crops, took my geodes to Clint, looked to see what I needed to upgrade my watering can, and made a couple of community center donations. On day 18, I watered my crops, opened another geode, and gave Clint my watering can to upgrade it. I sold spare items sitting in my inventory to make up for what I spent on the upgrade and went mining. I stopped by the community center on the way home to make a few donations as well. On day 19, I went fishing in the river to get fish to sell and to pass the time until more buildings were open. I chatted with Shane before going to the beach and lake to go fishing there as well. I donated a fish to the community center before going to bed. On day 20, my copper watering can was ready, so I picked it up, opened a few geodes, donated to the museum, and tended to my crops. I returned to the mines to make some progress there for the remainder of the day. On day 21, my parsnips were ready, so I harvested them, opened more geodes with Clint, and stopped by Robin's to see what I needed in order to build a chicken coop. I decided to do a bit more lake fishing while I was in the area as well. I chatted with a few villagers and removed more debris on my farm as there was still quite a lot. On day 22, I went fishing in the morning as it was raining and I wanted to see if I could catch any special fish. I ended up spending the entire day fishing to see what donatable fish I could catch and got a few for the community center. On day 23, my strawberries were ready, so I harvested them, went fishing and foraging, and bought more parsnip seeds. I had enough for a chicken coop, so I visited Robin in order to get one built. This part is always so hard for me because of how indecisive I am about placement. I visited the community center again to make donations and cleared extra fiber on my farm. On day 24, I watered my crops and went to the flower dance event. I didn't have enough hearts with anyone to actually have a dance partner, but I did go from person to person to chat with them before starting the dance. On day 25, I tended to my crops, opened a few geodes with Clint, and went mining to make more progress and hopefully find more gemstones. I crafted a mayonnaise machine to use when the coop is done, and I've adopted a chicken. On day 26, I watered my crops, went foraging, and worked on clearing debris from my farm. It was almost the end of the spring season, so I didn't feel a need to plant any more seeds. I donated a piece of mudstone I found to the museum as well. On day 27, I harvested all of my crops, had Robin start building a silo for my chicken coop, and went mining once more. On day 28, it was the final day of spring, so I decided to work on my farm to get an area of land ready for the summer crops the next day. I crafted a preserve jar to start using on my farm, found a piece of granite in a geode, and donated it to the museum. I walked around the valley for a bit and chatted with the villagers to ensure I was still interacting with them because I can be kind of bad about doing so. The traveling cart was in town, so I decided to see what was in stock. I placed a couple of scarecrows on the farm to hopefully protect the summer plants from crows. On day 29, it was the first day of summer, so I immediately went to Pierre's as soon as I could to buy seeds. I planted and watered all of the seeds and tried my best to keep them close to the scarecrows so they would have a better chance of being protected. On day 30, I watered all of my summer seeds. I didn't really have sprinklers yet, but not to worry, they did get crafted eventually. I donated a rusty spur to the museum and made a few donations to the summer foraging bundle. I spent the remainder of the day in the mines trying to get closer to level 50. Before going to bed, I made a pit stop back at the community center to donate a few more findings to the foraging bundles. On day 31, I received the infamous purple shorts request, but I did not have enough hearts to go into Marnie's room and retrieve them. I watered all of my crops and planted the free summer seeds I got as a reward from making donations. I went fishing in the lake by Robin's for a little while, donated what I caught, and cleared more debris from my farm. On day 32, I went to Marnie's shop to adopt my first chicken. I didn't really know what to name her, so I used the randomized option and settled on the name Birdo. After feeding Birdo some hay, I used the scythe to turn a bunch of the fiber on my farm into hay for her to eat. On day 33, I tended to my crops and visited the mines for the rest of the day. On day 34, I watered my crops, checked on Birdo, and visited the traveling cart to see what was available. I went back to my farm to continue whittling away at all of the plants and rocks that, to be honest, felt never-ending in year one. I stopped by Clint's to crack open a few geodes and heard that the train was in Stardew Valley, so naturally I had to run up the map to go look. On day 35, I went straight to the mines to make more progress as I still wasn't as deep as I wanted to be. While I was there, I found my first level that was infested with monsters, which can be kind of overwhelming, but is great for XP. I stopped by the museum to make a quick donation as well. On day 36, I tended to my crops, still hadn't made a single sprinkler yet, and had the audacity to wonder why it takes so long to water them all. I went north on the map towards the sauna to clear that area of debris and used what I could to grab as crafting materials. I caught a painting out of the water and was a bit confused because I thought it gave you a necklace, but oh well. I sold my strawberry jelly for spare money and ran around the house because let's be honest, it feels like the furnaces take forever sometimes. On day 37, a massive amount of my crops were ready, so I harvested them, watered the others, and checked on Birdo. I crafted a tapper and placed it on a nearby tree to start collecting sap. On day 38, I tended to my crops and visited the luau. As a joke, I deliberately put in a poisoned sweet pea because I wanted to see what the governor would do. His reaction was absolutely priceless. Mayor Lewis was not impressed either. I've only been able to make him like the gumbo once, fun fact. On day 39, I tended to my crops, had Clint begin working on upgrading my pickaxe to a copper one, and went foraging at the beach. The traveling cart was in town again, so I went to visit and see what was in stock. There was a bream available, so I purchased it to donate to the community center. This made it where I had one less fish to worry about catching and donating. On day 40, I harvested a ton of melons. The storm flash was a bit harsh, so not to worry, I did turn it off for anyone sensitive to flashes. I visited Pierre to get more seeds as I still had plenty of time to grow and sell or donate summer crops. I did a bit of rainy day fishing in the lake by Robin's house, and that first fish was really just not having it. I donated my sturgeon and completed the lake fish bundle and chatted with Linus. On day 41, Demetrius came over to chat and gave me the option to choose between mushrooms or fruit bats. Personally, I always choose the fruit bats because I love the variety and being able to make jellies with it. I harvested my blueberries, donated one to the community center, and stopped by Clint's to pick up my pickaxe. I went to the mines to continue grinding for the rest of the day. I had reached level 50 by now and wanted to see how much farther I could get. On day 42, I checked the mail and tended to all of my crops. At this point, I definitely needed a lot more sprinklers, but I tend to forget to craft them a lot of the time. I went down to the beach to go fishing for a little while and sold a bunch of my catches for extra money. On day 43, I tended to the crops, checked on and fed Birdo, and returned to the beach to continue fishing. Of all locations, the beach is my favorite to fish at for selling my catches. There's also a good amount that spawn there that you need for the community center. I did a little foraging as well before returning home and selling what I had to spare. On day 44, I tended to my crops and returned to the beach to continue my fishing spree. Willie had a cutscene for me which I think was meant for springtime, but it didn't get triggered until summer by accident. On and off over the past and next few days, I did a substantial amount of fishing in hopes of completing more of the fish tank and having spare ones for sale. Pierre's was closed, so I bought some extra seeds from JojaMart instead and planted them when I got home. On day 45, I watered all of my crops and went around the valley to chat with everyone. Afterwards, I continued yet again with more fishing. I checked on Birdo before going to bed. On day 46, I did just about the same as the past couple of days, checking on my crops in the mornings, going fishing, and I also bought another backpack upgrade. I donated to the community center before heading back to the farm. On day 47, I watered my crops, picked up fruit out of the cave, and went mining. I'm pretty pleased with how far I got, as I technically got past the original goal of level 50. On day 48, I took care of my farm, checked on Birdo, and visited the traveling cart to see what was available. I visited Clint to open up a handful of geodes I had and donated some of my findings to the museum. I completed the ocean fish bundle and donated my rabbit's foot as well. On the last day, I checked on Birdo and fed her. Usually on a normal farm, I would have already sold and harvested the blueberries I had that were ready, but I wasn't urgently needing them, so I left them planted. I stopped by the community center to make a donation, opened a few geodes, and visited the Hat Mouse. The remainder of the day consisted of chopping down trees in the rain to have stored away should this farm ever be continued. That is the end of this video. Again, I apologize for the missing 13th day. I salvaged as much of the corrupted footage as possible. But thank you so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe if you have not already. Until next time, bye everyone!